In this lesson, we will configure our LDAP for use with the Spring Security Framework. After we configure the LDAP, we will take a look at the structure of the LDAP and see how it stores the information regarding our users in our system. So click on the LDAP Servers tab, and then just right-click on the LDAP server and hit Run. Once the LDAP server has started, I'm now going to click on the Connections tab, and if I just double-click on that connection, we'll see it open, and we can now see the structure of our LDAP within the LDAP browser. We need to create another domain controller, and we have to create that within a partition. So we're going to add a partition to our LDAP server. So just double-click on the server, and then you'll see this partition tab within the editor. Click on that partition tab and hit Add. And we're going to ID our partition as O'Reilly. And for the suffix for the partition, we're going to change it to O'Reilly. And then we will leave the comma DC equals com in place. So go ahead and save the changes to our config.ldif file. Now go ahead and stop and then restart your LDAP server. Once the server has started, navigate back to the Connections tab, and then just double-click your connection to refresh. At this point, you'll see that we get a new partition and a new domain controller within our LDAP structure. So a domain controller is used to group a collection of machines or user accounts that we want to group together. Once we have included our domain controller, let's import our LDIF file, which is going to contain the information about our users, their authorities, and the groups within our permissions model. So simply right-click on root DSE and then go to Import and click LDIF Import. This will open up the LDIF Import dialog. And let's talk a little bit about LDIF. LDIF is the LDAP data interchange format. Basically, it allows us to specify the structure of our LDAP in a plain text file. So there's going to be a number of entries within this file, and each entry is going to have different attributes. And attributes are basically name-value pairs that have a type. So you can almost think of them as a database column and think of our entries almost as a table. Now, each entry is also going to have an object class. LDAPs are very much object-driven, so you'll have an entry that's an object class, and then that object class will have a bunch of attributes. You can almost think of this like a class in Java having many fields which have their own type, and those fields can then have a value. So let's import our LDIF file. You'll want to click on the Browse button within the dialog, and then navigate to the spring-security.ldif file. You will find this file within your working files for this lesson. So simply click on the file and then click on Open. You may have to overwrite a log file if you have already imported this file before. The Apache Directory Studio is going to write out this log, and I'm just going to mark that I want to overwrite it if it exists. Once you have completed this step, you can click on Finish. If you inspect your LDAP browser, you'll notice that we now have an organizational unit named Groups and an organizational unit named People. So these are entries within the LDAP. If we click on our groups, here we see the object class as an organizational unit, and then here we see an attribute OU, and that attribute is set to groups, and that's the name of this organizational unit. Now, within our groups, we have two groups listed. These are also entries. And you see they're of object class group of unique names. And here we have the CN attribute, which is the common name attribute. This is basically the name of the entity or the entry that we're storing. We're storing the name of basically our authorities here. So if we were to prefix this CN with role underscore, we'd have role underscore admin, which corresponds to one of our authorities within the application's configuration for Spring Security. You'll notice that for each group, we specify some unique members, and these are basically the members of the group. And here you'll see this string that basically navigates down through our LDAP. So here it's DC equals com, DC equals O'Reilly, OU equals people, and then UID equals K Bowersox. So if you just follow that down through the LDAP structure, so DC equals O'Reilly, DC equals com, then we go to OU equals people, and then UID equals to Kevin Bowersox, we're going to point to another entry, and this entry is of type inet org person, and there are a number of attributes that are specified on this entry. The first is a CN, so that's the common name. SN is a surname, so a last name. And then there's this UID attribute, and that's actually the username for this individual. And then we have a user password attribute, and that contains the password. So here we are establishing the users within our system as well as their credentials. And then we map them to these different groups. So here we see when we look at the user group, there are actually a number of unique members here, and that corresponds with all of our users. But when we look at the admin group, we only have one user in that group. As we work through our Spring Security configuration, we're going to be using this structure within our LDAP and using snippets of it to specify within our configuration.